They will not understand this message now, but in 50 years it will speak for itself. David Wilkerson said that phrase repeatedly in 1973. He never explained why 50 years, but here we are. It is 2026 and everything he saw is happening right now. Before we dive into the vision itself, you need to understand something important. Wilkerson wasn't a doomsday preacher. He wasn't a conspiracy theorist. He didn't have a YouTube point-taken channel or a brand to protect. He was just a small-town pastor who became unexpectedly famous in the 1960s for working with gang members in New York City. He wasn't dramatic. He wasn't political. He was known for compassion, for humility, for helping people no one else wanted to help. So when he suddenly came forward in 1973 saying, "I saw something and I can't shake it," people didn't know what to do with it. If some loud televangelist had said it, people would have shrugged. But Wilkerson, the quiet, reluctant preacher, this wasn't his style at all. And that is exactly what makes everything that follows so unsettling. According to Wilkerson, it struck him like a wave, not a dream, not an audible voice, but a sudden, overwhelming impression that he said felt as real as stepping outside into a storm. He wrote that he felt pushed into awareness as if God was trying to get his attention in the middle of the night. And what he sensed wasn't poetic or symbolic. It was sharp, clear, urgent. He believed he saw a future where society was heading toward a moment of deep spiritual fracture, a slow unraveling that would touch every sphere of human life: politics, culture, media, morality, even nature itself. Remember, this was the 1970s. No internet, no social media, no globalized panic cycles. People thought he was being dramatic. But look around today. Some of the things he described sound eerily like now. One of the first things Wilkerson talked about wasn't war or economic collapse. It was distraction. He said technology would create a society overwhelmed with noise. So much information, entertainment, and stimulation that people would lose the ability to think deeply. Sound familiar? He said the human mind would become overstimulated and undernourished, that attention spans would shrink, that people would become desensitized and yet anxious. He didn't know about smartphones. He didn't know about TikTok, Instagram, or endless scrolling. But he wrote something chilling. A generation will be so entertained, it will be numb. Look around. He saw it 50 years early. He also described a growing confusion about morality, not rebellion, not chaos, just fog. He said the world would begin to call good evil and evil good, not intentionally, but gradually through cultural drift. He predicted a time when truth would become a matter of preference and personal choice would override ancient wisdom. And today, my truth is a slogan. Values are flexible. Institutions are losing authority. People choose identity like they choose outfits. It's not judgment, it's observation. He described a generation that would feel more free than ever and yet more lost than ever. Wilkerson also said something that felt unbelievable in the 70s, that the West would eventually develop a subtle but intense hostility towards spiritual beliefs, not legal persecution but cultural. He said believers would be caricatured, mocked, and sidelined. He said entertainment would play a huge part in this shift, normalizing everything except traditional belief. Fast forward to 2026. Faith is mocked in comedies. Films portray Christians as fools or villains. Social media algorithms bury spiritual content unless it's shallow or ironic. Wilkerson predicted this atmosphere before Hollywood even turned cynical. But one of the most chilling parts of Wilkerson's warning wasn't even about people. It was about the planet. He said that before society recognized anything was wrong spiritually, nature would start sending signals not in a symbolic way but in a visceral physical way. He described it like a body going into stress, not dying but trembling. He wrote that the Earth would experience stretches of unnatural calm followed by sudden violent disruption, seasons that feel out of sync, storms that would roll in with a sense of intention. In the 1970s, if you talked about the weather acting strangely, people thought you were superstitious. Today, you mention the Earth feels off, and people nod because they feel it, too. Heat waves breaking century-old records, wildfires so large they create their own weather, rivers running dry, massive floods in cities that have never seen them. It's like creation is unsettled. Wilkerson wasn't trying to scare anyone. He was trying to say, when the spiritual world shakes, the natural world trembles, too. And honestly, tell me that doesn't feel true today. Here's something that feels prophetic in a different way. Wilkerson wrote that the future world would appear more advanced and efficient than any generation before it. But behind all that sophistication, it would be more fragile than ever. He described global systems, economy, food, trade as being woven together so tightly that a single tear could unravel all of them. Look at us now. We live in a world where a glitch in one server can stop thousands of flights, where a rumor on social media can crash a stock, where a ship stuck in a canal can shake global trade, where a cyber attack can shut down pipelines. It's wild when you think about it. We're advanced but easily disrupted. Wilkerson's son said, "The world will build a tower so tall that even a tremor will bring fear." He said it before the internet existed, before global markets existed. This wasn't a prophecy about destruction. It was a prophecy about vulnerability. Now, here is where the message shifts because he didn't believe this era would lead to total despair. He believed it would trigger something unexpected, a quiet spiritual return. He said as the world grew noisier, emptier, and more confused, people would begin searching again. Not for religion, not for institutions, but for truth. He wrote that the modern world would produce one of the greatest paradoxes. People would have more comfort but less peace, more connection but less love. And that emptiness would push them to seek meaning again. You see this everywhere today. People who never cared about spirituality are suddenly asking big questions. People exploring prophecy, theology, mysticism, meditation, not out of panic, but out of hunger. Wilkerson said the unraveling of society would create an unraveling of the soul. And in that unraveling, people would finally realize no amount of distraction fills the emptiness. And that, he believed, was the whole point of the warning. This brings us back to the phrase that gives me chills. Those close to him said Wilkerson repeated it again and again. They will not understand this message now, but in 50 years it will speak for itself. Why 50? He never explained. But here we are half a century later watching the pieces fall into place. The distraction, the numbness, the moral confusion, the natural upheaval, the global fragility all rising at the same time. You can call it coincidence. You can call it intuition. But you can't call it irrelevant because the parallels are too close, too precise, too on time. Here's the thing, and this is what Wilkerson insisted until the day he died. The warning was never about doom. It was about direction, never about panic. It was about awareness. He believed the unraveling wasn't punishment. It was revelation, a revealing of where our hearts were drifting. He said the real danger wasn't earthquakes or political turmoil but the quiet death of the soul. The moment people stop caring, stop feeling, stop listening to the whispers in their spirit. He said, when the world grows loud, the divine voice grows quieter. Only those who seek will still hear it. If you're still listening to this right now, maybe that says something. Maybe you feel that the world has shifted. Maybe you sense the tension, the emptiness, and maybe, just maybe, you're part of the group that can look at all this and say, this isn't random. Something deeper is happening. Wilkerson believed that in times like these, people wake up. Not everyone, but the ones meant to. So, if all of this hits you, if the words feel heavier than they should, pay attention because the warning isn't about fear. It's about clarity. And clarity is a gift. Wilkerson's son said, history always whispers before it screams. Meaning, before the collapse, there's the tremor. Before the storm, the pressure drop. And for many people today, that whisper is getting louder. So, here is the truth. David Wilkerson didn't give a prophecy of destruction. He gave a prophecy of awakening. The unraveling isn't the end. It's the invitation. An invitation to return to depth, to meaning, to the spiritual center we've drifted from. If the world today feels unsettling, maybe that's the point. Maybe the whisper is saying, this is your moment to see clearly. And if you're here right now listening, something tells me you're already hearing.